In today's episode, I want to show you a boarding ship, and specifically the archetype that I have chosen is a pure boarding ship. So what's the difference? Well, obviously a boarding ship is simply any ship that has a teleporter. But a pure boarding ship means a ship where you are very highly reliant on your teleporter in order to win fights or be safe. And what that mostly comes down to is the weapons that you have. You can see we've got small bomb, heavy ion, and I do still have the basic laser in cargo. These weapons are really very weak by themselves, right? It's not an effective build without a teleporter, but they do combine well with a teleporter. This is not something that I would typically be doing. Most of the time when I play a boarding ship, at some point during the run, it will make sense for me to convert it into a gunship as well, right? Because having weapons is good, it's useful. However, some of the time it actually is a better strategy to lean very heavily into boarding and not spend a lot of scrap on your weapons. It depends on your options earlier in the run. And you may remember that in the previous episode I said that an archetype doesn't necessarily have to be the most typical or common example in order to represent the group or the idea that you're trying to talk about. Sometimes it's more useful to use an extreme example, or you might say an idealized form. And this really is an idealized form of a boarding ship. And one way you can think about this distinction between boarding a regular boarding ship and a pure boarding ship is simply, well, you're about to fight the flagship. Just imagine how you would feel if you weren't allowed to use your teleporter, or maybe it was replaced with mind control. Now, if you have strong weapons, it kind of doesn't matter that much. You can just lean on your weapons. But with these weapons, we really need the teleporter, right? I mean, okay, if I use the basic laser, I do have a source of hull damage, I do have hacking, so I might be able to beat the flagship anyway without the teleporter. But my odds are probably not that good. It's certainly not going to be highly consistent. So that's the main thing that designates a pure boarding ship. It's how reliant are you on your teleporter, and specifically, what do your weapons look like? Very often, typically what you'll see with this kind of build is that one or two or even more weapons are bombs or missile weapons, and particularly bombs. But both of those weapon types are effective at supporting boarding, and they're also quite cheap because you don't have to build and upgrade an entire weapons set. We are running only 4 power here in weapons with the small bomb, second small bomb, and the heavy ion. Now, something else that is typical for a pure boarding ship build like this is the swap into clone bay. Again, this isn't normally what I would do on most runs, but with this setup it really does make a lot of sense, and even sometimes without. The main benefit of the clone bay is that it gives you a better way of dealing with auto ships. It's not completely safe by itself, by the way, so don't think that just because you've bought a clone bay that your boarders can't die on an auto ship. They absolutely can. But it is a bit of extra safety, and quite a lot of extra safety as you add more support to it. So for example, as soon as you have a level 2 teleporter as well as a clone bay, that's 2 systems that can keep your crew alive effectively instead of 1. And hacking obviously helps a lot. It also gives you not just some safety, but gives you a way of suppressing their weapon repairs constantly. So I don't want to go into too much detail about that because this is a video about the flagship, maybe some other time. But we swapped to the clone bay. And the other thing that is really good for especially a pure boarding build is this augment, Zoltan Shield Bypass. At least that's what it was supposed to be, but I couldn't actually find one. So we've got stealth weapons instead, which will help us a bit. Zoltan Shield Bypass is really good for a boarding heavy build. Okay, I'm going to start by moving some of my crew. First, I want a second team of boarders available. And I'm also going to move my Zoltan into Cloaking. Don't worry about that just yet. I will explain why I'm doing this somewhat later. And by the way, if any of you are having conniptions about my crew composition, why do I have an NG on piloting, why am I using these two boarders rather than this Mantis and so on, trust me, I do have my reasons. And honestly, crew composition doesn't matter as much as you think it does. I'd rather have the slug border than an NG border. NG pilot is fine. Mind control immunity for the pilot is nice but overrated. I was, of course, using this Mantis for boarding before, but at some point it just became convenient to swap them out into shields because I had some shields training I could get on them more quickly. And yeah, anyway, just don't worry about it too much, really. But this is what we're going to start with, and then jump to the flagship, or wait for it to come to us. And let's see what it is going to hack. Doors. Alright. Doors, of course, is a pretty benign hack. It really doesn't affect us at all here. A door hack can potentially be dangerous sometimes because if you take damage with fires into critical systems and so on, then it can impede your crew's movement a lot. But this is one of the completely trivial hacks with our setup, meaning that it does absolutely nothing strategically. Now, the first point that I want to make about strategy is that when you have a pure boarding ship, especially, you really, really need to kill the crew in phase 1, right? It's kind of not optional. And, you know, remember that phase 1 absolutely is the time to do this, not phase 2 or later, right? Get them dead in phase 1. And it's pretty straightforward. There is a standard strategy that you'd stick with almost all the time. Certainly with the build that we have with hacking and cloaking, this is absolutely standard boarding strategy on hard difficulty. So first we hack the missiles. We're going to use hacking and cloaking to stay completely safe from the missiles. And then we board into the ion weapon with our strongest boarders. Let's get our other team in position as well. Oh yeah, I should probably bring the Zoltan back to man engines. Alright, I'm just going to configure my power for convenience. We do have a battery, but I don't even need to use it. Let's make life easy for myself. We don't need our weapons at all, so I can just power everything. So 100% evasion during cloak. I can do a long cloak, it just buys more time, and that should mean that we actually break the ion before it fires. Not that it matters. So we dodge the missiles, and we're going to send our second team into the beam. With the upgraded teleporter, even level 2 upgrade, you can get a second team in before they cloak again, so that's quite handy. Oh, I forgot to turn the sound down from the recording. The only thing you need to remember really here, once you're set up like this, is don't forget to hack the missiles. And you don't need to finesse the timing on that, you just need to make sure that you do hack the missiles some point between when you leave your cloak, when you come out of cloak, and before they fire. Bring our first crew back. The ion is now broken. And now we just board straight into missiles. Because we have the clone bay, we really don't care about when these crew die. They can die on, or these crew dying, they can die on the flagship, it's fine. The missiles are firing again, so we cloak them. And I'm going to bring back my other crew because why not? And you see that we're easily killing off the crew one at a time, or gradually, just using the locked doors effect of hacking. We could let them in, it doesn't really matter. Let them in, they'll kill our mantis. At least one of them. Remember to hack. And you could board with a follow-up crew, right? We could just send another group instead of cloning our strongest boarders, but I'm just going to board with the strongest boarders. Now, what you should notice here is that once we've broken the ion weapon and the beam weapon, then, and we've got the missiles hacked, and we have cloaking, then the flagship cannot hurt us at all, and we only need 3 shields up. So we have all the time in the world to get this crew kill. I can let them in by depowering the hacking. Cloak the missiles. And sometimes they'll get out, sometimes they'll escape. That's okay. Does not matter. Now the other thing I can do here is just a bit of prep. I'm going to put one of my other boarders back into the ion. The other thing that's helping here, by the way, of course, is that they do run to the med bay once they get to 25 health. So not only do we have our combat advantage from being Mantis and having skills as well, but they're not fighting us all the time. They're trying to get out to the med bay. And if you go after the med bay directly, then they won't actually do that, by the way. So bombing the med bay isn't really useful here. Remember to hack the missiles. And I'm going to board my other boarder, the crew that doesn't have skills I care about, into the beam weapon again. Cloak the missiles. Board. And something you can do here if you want to is delay them running. Right, you can just move your crew around so you're not hurting them and wait for the hack door to reset. That takes 7 seconds after it's broken down. Remember to hack. Okay, now we've killed all of the crew and the AI has taken over. Oh no, lots of people seem to think that this is a big problem. It's really not. The AI is a complete pushover. And once we've emptied their ship of crew, then we have complete freedom to rampage around their ship in this phase and in the future phases. I'm going to go and break the lasers as well. And now you see that these systems are auto-repairing, but we've already got crew in them. They're never going to be able to fire because our crew break them much faster than they can fire at level 1. And at this point, I can literally turn off all of my systems, apart from, say, oxygen and clone bay. Let's leave those on. And we've won. That's it. Oh, I didn't set up speed hack, one moment. Speed it up. Now, of course, if you don't have a clone bay, then you are going to need a hull damaging weapon, or you'll need to sacrifice at least one crew to do the last point of damage. But we do have a clone bay. And also, killing the flagship, killing phase 1 here, even though it jumps away, it's considered technically to be a ship of destruction, so it doesn't abduct your crew like other enemy ships do when they run away. So we will get to clone our crew. And that's the crew kill. Okay, for phase 2, I am going to swap in the basic laser. And I also want to rearrange my crew slightly. I'm going to keep the Mantis on board initially and board with the NG and Slug. All crew damage systems at the same rate. So these two are just as effective boarding the flagship. And when we look at the map, you might notice something wrong here. We've actually moved beacons. The base has shifted to the side, and so have we. This is an artifact of reloading the save because I actually made a mistake when I first recorded this. I left a cosmetic mod running that was not for public consumption. So I had to re-record this. And when you reload a save, having changed the mod, or I think even if you just change the mods during a run, you can get weird shit like this happening. Anyway, that's why it's happening. And the other thing I'm going to show you here is a very unusual tactic. I don't think I've ever seen it done at the top level of play, which is to follow phase 2 instead of phase 3. So you can think about whether phase 2 or phase 3 is a bigger threat. Normally, as I said in the previous video, you would set up so that you wait for phase 2 and then you follow phase 3 when it jumps away from the base so that you have a safe beacon to retreat to from phase 3. Well, you could apply the same logic to phase 2, and one of the concerns with this kind of setup we have that kills it very slowly is that we're going to be taking a lot of drone searches. And there's the RNG inherent in that, the concern that drone searches can do a lot of damage, which I mentioned in the previous video. Now, I have gone back and forth on this, which I think is worse, phase 2 or phase 3 for this particular build, during the course of making this video. And I currently think that this tactic I'm about to show you is wrong. I think phase 2 is actually much less of a threat than phase 3, because in phase 3 you can't do anything to the flagship until you get through its Sultan shield, and you could potentially miss a lot of shots in a row. There are ways that it could go wrong, although it's extremely unlikely. What I would say though is that if you imagine we have a Sultan shield bypass instead, then I would 100% always be jumping to phase 2 there, because bypass and cloaking completely trivialize phase 3. Anyway, I'll show you the tactic, even though it's not technically correct in my opinion, with this specific setup. Okay, the first thing you want to do is immediately jump into the missiles. If you board them right away with 2 crew, then they will never get to fire because your crew will break them first. You could also use this tactic against the beam instead. That would be another option. You would also be able to break that. You wouldn't be able to use it against the lasers because they will fire just before you break them. I think the missiles are just better here because the first beam is unlikely to be a threat, and you can still cloak it if it is. And once you break these missiles, those 2 crew can then roam over into other systems like lasers and start breaking them as well, as opposed to being stuck in the beam. So we're going to board the missiles. And then the other thing we're going to do is hack drones. And I should probably take a moment to explain strategy here. In the previous video, I talked about how you want to kill phase 2 as fast as you possibly can. Don't let it get a whole bunch of drone searches, because all the drone searches are exposing you to RNG. It's potentially very dangerous. But here's the thing, we can't do that. we have no way with these weapons of killing the flagship quickly, so we have to play more defensively. And it turns out that the threat of the drone surge is predominantly not just the drone surge itself, but the combination of the drone surge with the lasers, the beam, and also these 2 extra drones, right? So what we can do playing defensively is cripple all of the flagship's other offense and thereby make the drone surges a lot less dangerous. Oh, I'm playing without sound on, so it's I'm missing things. Anyway, we can go kill this boarding drone. Maybe I can have a bit of sound. Okay, bombs are ready. I'm gonna just lob 2 bombs into the lasers. If they both hit, then we don't even need to bother with them and we actually stop them firing. If we stop them firing, then it means they will definitely not set up the beam, so we can definitely keep our cloak for the power surge. You could also send them into the beam, but of course, if only one of them lands, then you're still gonna need to board the beam. So I like sending them into the lasers first. Oops. Okay, the Mantis have killed that boarding drone, and now I'm gonna ignore the breach and go board into the beam weapon. Let's bomb drones and start attacking other systems. Okay, there's a fire in drones, we might just let that go. There is the power surge warning. And this is what I want to use the drone hack for. So we deliberately didn't use it for the boarding drone. Yes, it would be convenient, but the idea of doing this is we want to make the first drone surge safer in the hope that we will not need to use our cloak on it. Because if we can save our cloak for the next surge, then you know we've got that protection available. How long has that been traveling? Yeah, I will let it take 1 more shot, because that would be recharging, and then we're gonna hack now. Oh yeah, and let's board with our Mantis. The other thing this does, well, this actually does 3 things. First, it takes these 2 drones out the equation. The beam drone was already down because of the damage we did to drone control. But the hack takes these drones out the equation. It makes this surge a lot safer, potentially, if only just by taking out 1 combat drone. It also lets us count the drone's composition. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 combat drones and 1, 2, 3 beam drones. There's a total of 7 drones in the surge on hard difficulty. Now this is part of the reason that we set up to jump away from phase 2. Imagine that this was 6 or 7 combat drones. In that case, what I would do is hide under a long cloak, which guarantees our safety. And then retrieve my crew. And the level 3 teleporter is helping us here because it means we can get our crew back from both compartments without having to face another power surge. Okay, so of course I wouldn't have done that in a real game. That's just an illustration because that was quite a benign power surge and we could get a lot worse this time. I think in practice I would only jump away from a surge that has 6 or 7 combat drones. And the reason for that is that The odds of jumping into a worse surge are very, very low. Like if you get 6 combat drones, the odds that you're making things worse by jumping away are what? I think less than 1%. I think it's like 0.8%. And it's even debatable whether 7 combat drones is worse than 6 combat drones, right? You know, maybe 6 combat drones and 1 beam drone is actually worse because you've still got a lot of combat drones to open you up to the beam drone, and the beam drone is better at doing damage. So jumping away from 6 feels like you can't possibly make things much worse, whereas jumping away from 5 or fewer combat drones feels like you probably shouldn't do it. Anyway, we re-rolled the fight and we'll get a different drone surge composition. Oh, something that I maybe didn't make clear here was that the drone surge composition is fixed every time you're engaging the flagship. So if we stayed in that fight, then every single drone surge would have that composition. But now that we're re-engaging it, we'll get a random drone surge composition for this fight as well. Okay, so same tactic. Board missiles, hack drones. That's going for piloting, isn't it? Beat up the boarding drone with Mantis. Small bombs into lasers. And let's have the NG deal with that. Wait. Board the beam. Small bombs into drones. Where's the combat drone? Okay, the combat drone is just about to fire. Let's hack it. So now we're dealing with just the power surge drones. And we've got 1, 2... Hang on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 beam drones and 2 combat drones. So this is an excellent surge composition. It's practically impossible for the surge to hurt us. And now we've reached a point where we have completely neutralized the flagship apart from the power surge. So it's only those 7 drones that we will have to deal with. Now something else you can do, which isn't necessary here, but it's surprising how often you can do this, is shoot down a drone in the power surge, especially a combat drone. That's much more useful, like so. It's just another way of reducing the threat. Obviously not needed here, but good to know. Oh, and you know, I should be, in fact, let's just do that. I should be breaking the lasers. Not allowing them to fire again. And we're going to retrieve these 2 Mantis. And board 1 back into the beam. So we keep that suppressed and then bring the other one into the main body. And I guess the thing to understand here is that the power surge, the drone surge, is a very serious threat if you're not able to suppress all of the weapons and all of the drones. But because they have no crew and because we have boarding, we are in fact able to do that. And even if you got the worst case scenario of 6 or 7 combat drones, once you've broken everything else, yes, they can get through, yes, they can do damage, but they're not going to do an absolute ton of damage, right? There is a limit to how much they can do. And of course you have cloaking for at least half of the surges, and probably more than that. You see, it's easier to do. Well, it's more common to be possible to do this than you might think. And of course, if you're facing a surge composition that is a lot more dangerous than this, if you have those 6 or 7 combat drones, then you have a lot more targets in terms of hitting a combat drone with your basic laser. And of course you can move the weapon between the slots. And we can use it to shoot the ship as well. The other thing worth noting, as before, is that having 4 shields with full training and having a decent amount of evasion of engine levels with full training is also very helpful against power surges. And we're done. Let's take a look at what a bad drone composition is like. I reloaded the save a bunch of times to find one where I got 6 combat drones and 1 beam drone. So this is either the worst or very slightly less bad than 7 combat drones. I think this is maybe worse. And my cloaking is on cooldown because I did have 1 surge already, which I had to cloak. And what I'm going to do is just cut between the surges here. Shoot them down. I missed that one. I knew I should have fired that earlier. I suppose one nice thing about having only 1 beam drone is you can actually ignore everything except this drone and your shield level, right? Because you can always cloak otherwise. Well, this might be too late. Or maybe not. Oh, missed it. And I'm taking damage. Because I didn't pause carefully enough. No, I'm not. Okay, fine. And of course, if I'd been paying attention over here, then I would have seen I could just cloak. So, yeah, it's actually not that bad. Maybe I was wrong about thinking Phase 2 was more dangerous than Phase 3. I guess it just goes to show how much of the threat of the drone surge is from the combination of the surge with the other drones and the artillery weapons. Okay, for Phase 3 I will swap in the heavy ion, of course, because that does a lot more damage against the Zoltan shield. And I'm going to spend my scrap on another weapons buffer. That might seem excessive, but from a strategic point of view, the only thing that matters in Phase 3 is getting through the Zoltan shield, so we want to make absolutely sure that our weapons stay online. And we don't really have any other important upgrades to get anyway. And then the other thing I want to do is position my crew for mind control defense. So we can do something like this. 1, 2, 3. And then, well, actually, maybe I could put the engine sensors. I kind of like them in hacking and teleporter. Neither of these systems are relevant at first, not until we get through the Zoltan shield. So let's just do 1, 2, 3, roughly 4.5. Yeah, let's just do something like that. We'll do a run through and go. Now, of course, because we did in fact run away from Phase 2, we get to potentially run away from Phase 3 as well in this particular case. But of course you wouldn't want to do that if you got a good surge composition in Phase 2. You wouldn't want to just run away then and risk having a bad one. So there's no guarantee this will happen. And we're not going to need it either, right? Okay. Auto fire all your weapons. Find out who's mind controlled. Engines crew, that's slightly annoying. Who has engines? Does anyone actually have engines apart from the weapons crew? That's weapons, that's piloting. Yeah, I should have done more cross-training really, but you'll do. And I will drop my shields for the missiles. Level 3 cloak. And we're through already, which is fairly lucky, but, you know, not incredibly lucky. And yeah, let's go. Board the missiles. The only way I can stop them is with hacking. I could maybe still stop this Zoltan. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Actually, I might have been able to stop them with a small bomb, but it's fine. Tell you what, let's just bomb mind control. No, I want to show you something else. Let's actually bomb the missiles. Okay. If you do a single point of damage into shields, however you do it, but I'm going to use my borders, then, is it in the right positions? Yeah. Then that will help you with potential mind control on their ship. Okay, so we are taking this second power surge. Our cloak is not up. And we are tanking the lasers with that as well. No big deal. Okay, so here's a great example, great illustration. If we hadn't damaged shields, then this crew that they just mind control would follow us no matter where we went. So it's very disruptive to your boarding when that happens. Whereas with the point of damaging shields, and especially with a mantis repairing it, then you can move around and go into other systems. Even if they weren't in the room, right, as soon as they're mind controlled, whatever else you're doing, they would just walk into shields and start repairing it. I'm gonna small bomb here though, so we just don't have to deal with it. And now we simply punch down their ship. Also, there is a tactic I can set up, which isn't necessary, but is good. I'll just repair this. I put a Zoltan in cloaking, and that gives me the best possible mechanism for timing the power surges. Unlike in Phase 2, you can cloak almost 100% of the power surges if you use a level 1 cloak. And that's because the only time you actually need to be cloaked is a very brief instant while the lasers are crossing your shield barrier. Whereas in Phase 2, there's no point being cloaked for just like half a second or something, because the drones are going to attack you over a period of around 7 seconds. And what you can do here is a level 1 cloak with no power in the system apart from the Zoltan. And then once enough of the lasers have crossed, move the Zoltan out the room and you pull the power. And that puts your cloak immediately on cooldown. So you have a very, very high chance to dodge the next one. If you do that extremely carefully, if you pause more tightly, then effectively you can get to a point where the only way that they can possibly hit you with a power surge is just by like random variation. Let's bomb that. Random variation in the travel time of the lasers. Right, because it's a 20-second cooldown and the minimum cooldown for the lasers is also 20 seconds. The shield has popped back up, but we can deal with that. Oh yeah, of course it's not going to get through the Zoltan shield. I should have bombed piloting earlier, but it doesn't matter. Like, we're in complete control now. If you didn't have a Zoltan, then what you can do is wait for about 2 seconds. You can time this with crew movement or something. I'll just do it now and then cloak. Yeah, I was a bit off on that, but what I'm saying is that you can cloak before the power surge appears, 2 seconds after the warning. That's interesting. They actually stayed and fixed missiles. That's a bit of a crew bug there. They should be fixing shields. I don't know why that happens sometimes. Anyway, it's a very slow process, but we are completely safe. Or near as damn it. Let's just bomb that. I suppose there's no point using the heavy ion now. It does literally nothing. Okay, so for this one I'll try to just judge it. I should technically, yeah, like use crew movement. But you see here, you can just time it as well. And actually we want them repairing the missiles, I guess. Would you stop it? Oh yeah, cloak. And there you go. Phase 3 is pretty simple. Very much an average scrap run overall, despite being a boarding run. 1850 has got to be somewhere around average for me. Let's take a look at what the fight looks like when you have a Zoltan shield bypass. I just cheated this into the save file using the profile editor. And I'm going to position a third crew outside the teleporter to make sure that even if one of my mantis gets mind controlled, we still have 2 boarders available. Now let's see, yeah, you're in the right position. Let's go. Check who is mind controlled. Okay, they're fine. Board immediately. Now, you will not be able to break the missiles in Phase 3 using just your boarders before the missiles can fire, because the artilleries in Phase 3 are level 4 rather than level 3. However, if you have a small bomb and full weapons training, then you actually can do it. There we go. Check this out. They're just about to fire, but no. And now we've basically made the fight safe. Oh, I should really be doing this, but I don't think I can get there in time. And I should be boarding with more crew, but there's really not much I want to show you here that I haven't showed you already. Okay, we just cloak. Really the main thing is simply that you can hack mind control, right? Because now the difference is that we broke the missiles before they could fire, so we have the luxury of hacking mind control. And especially combined with the Zoltan and Cloaking, doing that just removes all possible counterplay. And that's it really with Phase 3. Zoltan Shield Bypass is really strong against Phase 3 when you have boarding and cloaking. The video is already really long, and we're only now getting to the meaty part of it, which is how to deal with all the different hacks in Phase 1. So sorry about that, but you know, what can you do? I'm going to divide the systems into 3 groups. You have the trivial hacks, you have the hacks that are completely safe if you play correctly but require more careful play, and then you have the 2 hacks that can actually threaten you in some way. Okay, so for the trivial hacks, we already saw doors, but there's also sensors, oxygen, and battery. Let's go through those real quick. I'm not going to show you those at the flagship because they are trivial. Doors is what we saw the first time that we fought the flagship. Sensors, of course, does basically nothing, especially now that we have slug crew. Oxygen is completely trivial as long as you have level 2 oxygen, right? You need to be able to put 2 power into this system. Otherwise it's really, really bad and you would have to jump away from it because the flagship will empty you of oxygen before you're able to finish the crew kill. Battery is pretty much trivial. All you need to do is make sure that you are floating 2 power in your reactor bar before the hack activates each time. And then that will ensure that it drains from the reactor as opposed to from another system, which could, well, a system which could surprise you. And then weapons, you might think, well, come on, weapons hack's really bad. Not in this case, because we don't actually need to use our weapons at all. It's totally irrelevant. And then for the non-trivial hacks, we have teleporter, cloaking, clone bay, and piloting and engines, which are effectively the same thing. And finally, for the problematic hacks, we have shields and hacking. Okay, let's get started. We're going to go through them one at a time. We have a teleporter hack. This is pretty straightforward. All you need is to have at least one upgrade in teleporter. If you don't have a teleporter upgrade, then you can actually make do with the Zoltan. The reason you need the upgrade is that you need to be able to remove the power from your teleporter before they hack you again. And by the way, if you're doing this against another ship that doesn't have cloaking, then don't make the mistake of boarding and then getting your teleporter hacked, because that will actually put your teleporter on cooldown. You have to wait it out for the next cycle. Oh, you need to be in there. Now obviously it is a little bit more awkward because there is some disruption to your boarding, but as soon as it comes off cooldown, just take all the power out and ideally put it in other systems. Occasionally if you have power floating in the reactor, then the hack will actually succeed. It will still pull your boarders back. I do not know the circumstances that caused that, but I do know that I have never seen it pull boarders back if you have no free power floating in the reactor. So we're going to wait for the next hack here. We can't do our normal thing of boarding another group in. Yeah, let's drop the shields. And then once that's over, we can board again. Oh, I didn't hack. I was paying too much attention to making the video. Never mind. But you get the idea. Take the power out, put it somewhere, and they will not pull your boarders back. We have an evasion hack. And this is where level 3 hacking and cloaking comes into play. Now technically you only need level 2 cloaking here, but level 3 makes it a bit more comfortable. And what we're going to do actually is just pre-cloak. And we need to board as well. I would like some more power. Oh yeah, I don't need my weapons. I'll keep the small bomb on for now because this is a little bit trickier. And the idea is that if you cycle your hacking and cloaking carefully enough, then you can just keep hacking them down, and you'll never take damage because the missiles will never fire. So I'll demonstrate that. You could of course use your small bombs as well, but I'm not going to. Keep an eye on your cooldowns. Ideally this will have 10 seconds of charge when you hack it. But the main thing is just not to wait too long. And you're also going to get some damage into the missiles from your borders, which will make this easier. Meaning you won't need to be as precise. Cloak when it comes off cooldown. You can see that we are mostly keeping the missiles from gaining any charge. Although I think even if you do this absolutely perfectly, then eventually it will fail. I'm not sure about that, but I think even if you do it perfectly, you'll run into some issues of not being able to be frame perfect, so to speak. But in practice, it just doesn't matter. And at some point, you'll just break the missiles. You see? No problem. No chance of damage. Okay, we have a clone bay hack. This one is pretty interesting. Everything starts the same. Oh, let's put you back. Whoops. Now the problem here is that we don't have control of when the clone bay hack happens, in the sense that we don't have control of when our borders are dying on the enemy ship. So we now need to treat this as if we were boarding with a med bay, but with extra steps to get our crew healed before we board. So what I'm going to do is prevent this crew. I recommend only doing one at a time in terms of vent prep. At least don't have them too close together, because you can easily just lose attention for a moment. I'm going to get them down to about 2 health, then walk them out directly out the room. Don't have them take a detour. Make sure they're doing that. And then you can think about the timing here. So the way this works is that your crew spend between, what is it? I think it's 1.5 and 2 seconds to die, depending on the type of crew. I think Mantis are 1.7 off the top of my head. You can check that on the wiki. But you know, we can say we've got a bit of time to account for there. There's the dying animation time, and then they hit the clone bay, right? And then once they're in the clone bay, they have a 3-second grace period before they die permanently if the clone bay is offline for any reason, such as now it's offline because it's being hacked. Now, the flagship cloaked at the very start of the battle, but the hack happens about 2.5 to 3 seconds later, typically, because it's offset by the travel time of the drone. So the way I do this is I just wait for the flagship to decloak. Okay, and then I open the airlock and let my crew die. So there's what I'm getting at here is the dying animation is about the same as the offset, the travel time. So that tells me that the hack is going to end about the time that they finish dying. And this will in fact allow you to get 2 crew cloned safely with a level 2 clone bay. You do need a level 2 clone bay for that. And that is the maximum that you can clone in a hack cycle. Oh, and the doors can be a bit annoying, so there's a little trick we can do here if we want. You see, I didn't even need to break them down. I just caused them to spawn outside the clone bay because the tiles were occupied. Okay. Now we board into missiles. But remember, you can't just let your crew die here. You have to be more cautious. You have to treat it like medbay boarding. I'll let them in. Remember to hack missiles. They're gonna run soon, so I don't want to hurt them just yet. Keep an eye on the flagship's cloak, especially because your boarders can kind of get trapped. Okay, so those 2 are dead. Don't be greedy. Pull your crew out. And now I'm going to vent them. Okay, you've got a big enough health differential so I can do this and not get confused. Okay, that'll do fine. The hack is starting. Right, we've prepped our crew. Wait for the flagship to decloak. Kill your crew. And it should time out pretty much perfectly with a bit of cushion as well. Because a level 2 clone bay takes, what, 9 seconds per crew, meaning you have 2 seconds spare, roughly. So just watch this, watch for when the hack starts. It started. And that's all there is to it. You just have to be very careful. Now we have a cloaking hack, and you might think that this one is a big problem potentially because you know, at some point at least you're going to get offset from the missiles and you're going to be wanting to cloak, but the missiles will be firing. It turns out that this one is very straightforward if you know how to handle it. So of course we can cloak the first missiles. And you can use any level of cloak you want. I'm going to use a level 3 cloak here. And doing that means that it'll be particularly easy to spot what's going on because their hack will actually pull us out of our cloak. And the effect of that is that they are helping to reset the timing, right? See, they've just hacked us. Here's the trick. All you need to do, and it doesn't matter what level of cloak you're using, all you need to do is use a level 1 hack on the missiles as soon as they hack you. And you do have a good amount of margin here. You might be thinking, well, wait, I can't do that because the missiles haven't charged enough, I'm wasting some of my hack. It doesn't matter. You only need a level 1 hack to delay the missiles so that their cooldown is more than 20 seconds. And that's the trick here. We want to delay this just enough so that they will fire before they hack us again. Okay, so I hack as soon as they have hacked us. And that's really all that there is to it. I'll just let it run a little bit so you can see. And, you know, we could use a level 1 cloak instead, it makes no difference. Missiles are firing. Cloak. And they're going to hack us soon. Just after they cloak, of course. They're cloaking, they're going to hack. As soon as they hack, you hack as well. And let's just demonstrate the point with one more cloak. Cloak the missiles. And then they will pull us out of the cloak. And that's all you have to do, rinse and repeat. Oh, one more thing when you have this cloaking hack that you have to watch out for. You can see that our mantis are punching down the missile system, right? We need to make sure they don't do that. So I'm actually going to, well, I could move them out the room if my hack wasn't available, and actually, yeah, they just hacked me, so I need to do that. The enemies are not getting in now, so I'm going to move my mantis out of the room to reset the repair, and then we can go back in. Because if you damage the missiles, you're going to slow them down, and slowing them down means that they may not fire in time before your cloak gets hacked again. Okay, we have a shields hack, and this is the most interesting and the most complicated one to explain. The short version is that if you don't do anything fancy, honestly, this isn't as bad as it seems. The default timing is pretty close to as good as you'll get. And you know, you'll likely take a point or two of damage, but you're not likely to take a ton of damage. So it's not actually as bad as it looks. But this is still objectively the second worst hack, in my opinion, for the setup that we have. Anyway, when I was preparing this video, it made me think, is there a way to completely neutralize this hack by changing the timing? And initially I thought that's not going to be possible because, you know, the weapon timings are going to keep changing relative to the hack. That doesn't seem likely. But then I realized that the laser cooldown is exactly half the time of a full hack cycle, because the lasers are firing every 15 seconds and the hack takes 10 seconds with a 20-second cooldown for a total of 30 seconds. So it made me think, well, could we potentially get a timing where we position the lasers exactly in the middle, so to speak, as far away from possible from the points where our shields are down due to the hack? And it turns out that we're actually quite close to it already, just with the default timing and letting the hack land. and not pre-cloaking. So my first bit of advice would be don't pre-cloak unless you're going to use this specific tactic that I'm about to show you. Because the default timing is actually not that bad, and if you mess with the timing in the wrong way, then you might get smacked by the beam instead. Normally what happens if you just let it land is you'll have 2 shields up before the lasers are hitting you, so if you dodge nothing, then you'll take 1 hull damage and you won't get smacked by the beam. Anyway, this started me thinking, what would a perfect timing look like if it could be done? And I figured you'd want the lasers to be firing about 5 seconds after the hack completes, because your first shield takes 2 seconds to recharge, as does the second, and then the third one is a bit quicker at 1.72 seconds. And you're not getting any benefit from crew skill here because they can't man the station of a hacked room. So that takes 5.72 seconds in total to bring 3 shields back up, and the lasers are firing at 15 seconds, and their travel time is going to be longer than 0.72 seconds, especially, you know, to get the third laser over there and with the slight firing delay that all weapons have. So this is almost perfect. The only thing that messes it up is the travel time of the hacked drone, which is going to be around, I think, 2.5 to 3 seconds. I don't know if any of them can be 2 seconds from an enemy ship. That seems a bit fast for an enemy travel to your side of the screen. I go on 2.5 to 3 seconds, and I think this one here is probably about as long as you can possibly get, because it's coming a really long distance to hack shields here. I think this is probably around 3 seconds. Anyway, if we could offset that by delaying the lasers for the same amount of time as it takes the hack drone to travel to our ship, then we would have a perfect timing for the first volley of lasers, right? So what we can do is let it land. You definitely have to let it land. Okay. Take all the power out your cloaking apart from the 1 Zoltan power. That's why I moved them into the system in advance. And then do a level 1 cloak. Now what I would advise here is erring on the side of cloaking for slightly too long rather than not cloaking for long enough. Because we're not using our normal tactic of cloaking the missiles, which means that we're not separating the lasers from the beam, and we don't have the shield manning bonus, right? So if you don't cloak for long enough, then it might mean that you haven't separated the shields hack enough from the lasers, and the shields might not have recharged enough in order to cover you from the beam. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is let this tick down to about halfway. Watch the animation, and maybe just a little bit more, and move the Zoltan out of the room to pull the power. And I'm actually, I should go back into engines, but I'm actually not, because I want to show you that this does work, even if you don't dodge any shots. I'm not going to be using the heavy iron, am I? Or indeed the small bombs. Yeah, that shouldn't matter if I get this right. Remember, you will need to hack the missiles this time because you haven't cloaked them. So it looks really sketchy with the lasers hitting us now. And we're down to no shields and the beam is going to fire soon. But you see, even with that longest travel path on the hack drone, we still get our second shield up just in time before the beam fires. Oh, and I should get my other crew on board. Whoops, forgot to drop my shields. That's fine. Probably. Yeah, it's fine. And now you see the shields hack is starting, and the lasers are firing. And again, I could just drop my evasion to 0, please. All 3 of these are going to hit. But they were up in time. And now the next thing you have to worry about is, what about this beam smacking us out of cloak? Well, we can just use a level 3 cloak. And here's the trick. You absolutely must use a level 3 cloak if you want to maintain this timing. A level 3 cloak is equal to 15 seconds, and that offsets the lasers by 1 charge cycle exactly. So it's exactly as if the lasers hadn't fired at all for 1 charge cycle. And of course you'd need to be careful with not firing your weapons under cloak if you didn't have stealth weapons, because that could disrupt the timings here. And we'll just look at it one more time. Lasers are coming in. Shield hack is just starting. They don't have a beam weapon or the ion anymore. And we can cloak the missiles whenever we like. Actually, let's just put someone else in there rather than Zoltan so I can depower it easily. Always cloak at level 3. We'll just watch the next one. Again, lasers are firing. And this timing will maintain itself forever. And finally, we have a hacking hack. In my opinion, and this is something that's changed recently, but in my opinion, this is the worst hack for a standard boarding ship, you know, with teleporter, cloaking, and hacking. And the reason it's worse than even a shields hack is that it disrupts your ability to control the fight. Right, with a shields hack, if you don't have the level 3 cloaking and the Zoltan available, then you could take some, you probably will take a little bit of damage, but it's not a big deal. Whereas this hack is much more chaotic. This is the only hack that I would jump away from with this build. I guess I will play it out just to show you how it can go. We're going to hack missiles anyway, I think. Well, yeah, I will hack them already. And I think I'll use my hack now while I can. And this is part of the problem. They keep hacking you and blowing up your hacks, which cost you drone parts. It's not such an issue if you have like 20 drone parts, but if you don't, it can sometimes be an issue. There's a bunch of RNG with that. And the other thing, of course, is that it takes away your door control at inopportune moments. And let's just demonstrate. If we board now, right, we've got door control for now, and we're hacking the missiles. Okay, good, we managed to kill that one crew. I'm just going to turn off my weapons. But now they're hacking our hacking again. Oh, actually, I might turn my weapons back on. And we don't have door control. And we can't deploy our hack yet. And now I want to hack them again for safety. Or maybe I don't. It's a bit weird working out how to play this. Now what you can potentially do is take advantage of the hacking hack. So for example, if I can take these missiles offline, like so, then I could swap into a medbay hack. As a way to kill the crew quicker and not burn through as many drone parts. And maybe balance my use of drone parts and bombs. I can get some crew kills with a bomb. So you can definitely work around it, but it's quite chaotic. Maybe I should be boarding with a second crew, actually. Shall I wait for the next timing? I've actually lost track. Let's just hack. Oh, that probably wasn't... That was a bad timing. Yeah, that's just my fault. And now, of course, we can actually just break out. And I could have started doing this a bit earlier. Because they don't have many crew left, and we can just distract them while we break the medbay. Or just do it like that. So yeah, it's not terrible. But in my opinion, this is worse than shield hack because it's more chaotic. And that's it. That's all the details. What I really like about this pure boarding ship archetype is that you can see how clean it is fighting the flagship, how we have an answer to everything if you understand the background and the tactics involved. And then we can use this as a basis for looking at situations with boarding the flagship that are not quite so clear-cut, right? Once you recognize this pattern, then it can inform your judgment about other builds that are not quite so straightforward, and we will look at that in future videos. In the meantime, as I've often been told, that was a long one, and all I can say is I hope you enjoyed it anyway.